Thabo, I think we got a message. Green light.
So we can start now. We can start. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Blacknificent Show, a talk show that seeks to spotlight Black excellence and engage issues that are affecting Black people today. On tonight's episode, our topic is the Black youth and the struggle for visibility. And to engage this discourse, we have with us Bongani Khanyile KaLuthuli, an author and admitted attorney of the High Court of South Africa and a director of his own law firm which specializes in employment law. I'm very excited about today's episode and I would like to welcome you, sir. Welcome to our show.
Good evening, Thabo. Good evening to all our viewers streaming live. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. You know, in those moments right now that I feel like the listeners at home, they'll be engaged on when it comes to the issues of visibility, or rather the struggle to visibility as Black young people. But now to start off our conversation, I would like us to talk about your childhood. What was so formative in your childhood towards your level of visibility in the legal profession?
Yeah, thanks for that brilliant question, Thabo. Look, I look at my struggle as more, in my childhood, as more of my formative years into the person that I am now. I grew up in abject poverty, in serious lack, where I could not even afford a ticket to go to school. I was in an Indian school staying in Umlazi, south of Durban. I even harnessed my preaching ability more not as a calling, but as a means to raise funds, as it were, to be able to get money to go to school. Little did I know that God was pruning this gift of public speaking, of oratory, of preaching. And I was invisible by poverty, because poverty, can dehumanize a person. So God had to endow me with certain gifts that were too much for my generation, my peers, to ignore. And that was my intellectual ability, because I was a loner growing up. I would spend time in the library reading a lot, and I would like to practice what I read. So I would like to speak those things to my colleagues who didn't understand what I was on about. And so teachers recognized my intellectual abilities. They started, devising means to assist me. Others paid for my train fare. Others paid for my lunch. Others paid for uniform, because I would miss a lot of days in school, but still come out first at the end of the semester. So those natural abilities that God gave me, that curiosity about life and intellectual endeavors, made me stand out as invisible as poverty was trying to make me. So I couldn't be ignored at school because of that. And that's how I came about in primary years, right up to high school, where I became a head prefect in high school. And when I went to study law, that I was given a leadership bursary because of that position. And so my journey began at high institution, Thabo.
Wow, it's so interesting how the childhood competencies really established your visibility even as an adult. So that is the importance of childhood, I guess.
Yes.
So you have written a book, and I've read it. In fact, I took the today's topic. I initiated it from this book, because this book really speaks further about what we are discussing here. So I know that you've written this book, The Struggle for Visibility. Why title it The Struggle for Visibility, and what was the message, or what is the message that you are seeking to your leaders through this book?
So, essentially, I introduced myself, as I stake my claim to this work, to the intelligentsia. I introduced myself by articulating, at least I try to articulate what I call my triple heritage. My triple heritage consists of the politics. I'm a politician. I'm the whip of the ACDP. It consists of the law, as you've introduced me. I am a practicing attorney, admitted attorney, and also the spiritual part of me, which is me as a minister. This triple heritage makes the person I am. So I then go out there through this intellectual work. I try to deal with issues that affect all of us in society, whether you talk of Ubuntu, whether you talk of the economy, whether you talk of politics, issues of legacy. I address them through what I call my intellectual ramblings. So when you read a lot, you would know that you always have an urge to write and say something. Now, there comes a point in a reader's life where you get so bottled up with ideas, with messaging, that you want to offload. This was my way of offloading whatever has been going through the years. And so then this is the work that we're in. I introduced myself to say, this is what I'm about. Let's have a discussion. Let's debate issues. We don't need to agree on my ideologies, but certainly they can make us think and converse and debate, whether it's young people, whether it's church people, whether it's politicians, or just a normal Joe Soap on the street.
Wow. Let us debate it. You spoke, you mentioned Ubuntu, and I think it's one of the topics of one of the chapters that you are engaging on the book. How did Ubuntu affect you as a little boy, and how has it played out in your pursuit for visibility in the legal profession? That is number one. And number two, if we are to apply Ubuntu, how do we establish the golden mean between excessive consideration and deficient consideration at work? I believe that there's could be a challenge there in us trying to be kind and in trying to be good with our colleagues. Two questions for me. I would like us to debate them. How can Ubuntu here be balanced as the golden mean?
So growing up in a township, black township, I told you how I struggled. They were my neighbors, and you would have read about the family of Zhusha and Gogo Msomi. These are the families that realized the situation I was in economically. They would just call me randomly and invite me for dinner, and I would eat when their children or their grandchildren were eating. I would eat with them, Sometimes it would just be me and grown-ups because they saw the abject poverty I was growing under. I didn't have a name for that. I didn't know back then that I was a recipient of Ubuntu. And its anthropological basis, Ubuntu is expressed from the maxim, Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. That is purely an African construct. I am because you are. So when I did my law studies, and I did jurisprudence at the twilight of my studies, and I read the State versus Makwanyane, and I read Mohoro trying to break down what Ubuntu is, then it hit me, I am a product of Ubuntu. So when these people were helping me in my society and my teachers, whoever is part of my narrative, part of my story, they were doing Ubuntu. That changed my lens now. And it changed my outlook. It changed how I deal with and I handle practice. I'm a small firm, Thabo, but what I do is I still hire, graduates from university 2 every year that come in and they become part of my firm. They spend their 2 years and they get admitted, and I have another crop, even though we don't have so many resources, but we share amongst ourselves, and they get a very competitive salary. There is Ubuntu. It's because of what Gogo Msomi did, what Gogo Zhusha did. That's what changed the practice. When it comes to fees, for instance, and the kind of pro bono work that I do, law is inaccessible to people on the street. It's expensive. So I said, look, I'm not here for profiteering. I'm not here to make money as such. I'm comfortable through God's grace, but how can I be accessible to the people? I then take courses, cases on pro bono basis where I can afford to use my money and assist people. That's how Ubuntu helped me and changed the person that I am today. And I argue in the book, my good friend Eusebius Makaiser, we've had intellectual discourses about this, where he goes on and say, well, Ubuntu cannot exist in an urban area or even in England because it's too westernized. And I said, no, they have their own equivalent of what Ubuntu is. But fundamentally, when you look at where we come from as Black people, we've always never been individualistic. When you as Thabo, coming from a village or a township where you come from and you succeed, it's the community that claims you. One of our own, one of our sons, has been successful. That's why you even have issues like black tax. They come from that notion, no matter how you feel about it, they come from that notion and the space of Ubuntu. And that's how it has changed me. It doesn't mean, and I must caution, coming to your latter part of your question, Ubuntu doesn't mean that we promote laziness, that we promote people who are not supposed to because of Ubuntu. It does not negate the virtues and principles of hard work. It's merely saying, how can I support you to make you perform better where you are? It doesn't mean that I'm going to excuse you for your non-performance or your defective performance, but how can I make it better for you? Because when you look good, I look good. That's Ubuntu.
Wow, that's true. That's true. But in your case, I think because you are the boss, in a different approach. If you were to be the employee, we know that a lot of Black people young Black people in our society are actually employees. And now I would like to know, we are still here in the issue of Ubuntu. How can one really apply Ubuntu and establish a golden mean between being excessive in it, such that you compromise yourself, or being in it, such that you show a sense of arrogance? So how much of Ubuntu is good in the workplace as a young Black person who's a tech, who's a nurse, who's all that, who's a cashier out there?
Yeah. The economic system right now is skewed against the Black worker. When it comes to issues of punctuality, as an example, majority of our people would commute to work. And I'm a labor lawyer. I would immediately say to my client, this person comes in late, give them a first warning. They come in late, give them a second warning. Let's have a hearing, let's dismiss them. The question is, have you sat down with the person and asked, what is a challenge really with you? You may find that the person takes 4 taxis. They wake up at 3 in the morning before they make it for 8 o'clock. That's Ubuntu. And I know it because I've been there. I know it because I wouldn't have got articles if those people didn't look at me without a car and said, we are willing to buy you a car. Before then, I would commute. Sometimes there was an instance, Thabo, where I woke up at 4 in the morning. I was staying in Auckland Park, still staying in a student residence. I walked up to Albertine to my firm. It took me 4 hours to get there. I got there at 8. I was drenched. I went to the bathroom and I cried. How then, when I become a boss, become arrogant, desensitive, to somebody who has a similar situation? So it doesn't mean that I lower the standard and I say, well, people can come in at 10, at 11. No. But the Ubuntu part of me says, how can we make you, come in early? What is the issue? If it's money that you need, can we subsidize you just for transport so that instead of taking a train, you get a taxi to come in early? All right. So that's how you look at it from an employer and workplace setup. Then you come in, for instance, to me as a labor lawyer, where I chair disciplinary hearings, as I argue in my book. It's easy for someone to just be dismissed because I fire a lot of people for a living. But before I do that, I think to myself and I ask, how many dependents do you have? I look at mitigating factors and really try to weigh, is this misconduct really such that it warrants dismissal at this particular stage? Remember, if the person is taken, their livelihood is taken from them, it's a village that you've impoverished now. Because a normal Black person with their salary, it can be spread between 4 and 5 households. No joke. These are things that we need to consider. That's why Ubuntu comes in as that current that underpins the very being of my practice. And I may be the most compassionate where I need to be, but then I become also the most robust where I also need to be.
Wow. No, I can hear you. Correct me if I'm wrong. You sound like a person who, even from early in your as a student, you've been very competent, and you've been, to put it in a term that relates, you've been visible, like from your childhood, even as a student, and even as you proceeded in your profession. What can you say to someone who's struggling with the incompetency of skill? How can they become erudite stewards of career when they have never been visible, when they have never, when they've been mediocre all this time? What are the visibility nuggets that you give them to transcend the circumstances of mediocrity?
Sure. Let's talk about what exactly is incompetence. If we say you are incompetent, what do we mean? Because it could either be that naturally you don't have the ability to fulfill certain assignments, certain tasks, or you can be, but you are lazy because you're not harnessing your skill. So we have to have a diagnosis and a prognosis for that situation. And it's not a one-size-fits-all, because sometimes you can find yourself pursuing something that is not meant for you. I'll give an example. If I was a medical student, I probably would have failed. I probably would have been said to be incompetent because I'm not good with numbers, but I'm very good theoretically. So that means I would have been a misfit for the medical field. I had to find myself. Now, when I become a law student or a lawyer, what makes me stand out, become visible, it's to harness my skill. Now, how do you harness your skill? For instance, as if you're trading in law, you cannot trade in law if you can't speak, because your speech, your vocabulary is a tool of trade. So that means I need to invest myself in the reading material, right? Because I pick up on vocabulary. I understand language phenomena. Then I begin to speak, and I speak better because I read more. Then people hear me and say, oh, he's a very competent lawyer. He can articulate himself. And also, you build on small victories. This is one thing that I normally do. Even when I started my own practice, a small victory that an experienced lawyer will say, oh, but come on, you can't make huge lip service about this victory. I would throw it out there, making myself visible. Oh, I won an arbitration award. Oh, I won this case, that case. Like people started noticing, oh, this guy is winning stuff. You know, and there were others I was losing, okay, but I was focusing more on the one that I was highlighting. It's like somebody coming to an interview. When you are asked, what is your weakness? You don't go there and start telling people for 15 minutes what your weakness is. You mention for a minute what your weakness is, and you spend 10 minutes saying, but oh, you know what? That is overcome by this strength that I have. When I still used to go for interviews, they would ask me, what's your weakness? I'll say, my handwriting. I write terribly, but hey, I can think, I can read, I can write, I can interpret, I can do 1, 2, 3, trying to supplement that weakness with my strength. And so then we need to understand, when you say someone is incompetent, what exactly is your issue? Are you where your purpose is supposed to be? Are you where your passion is? Bible says, where your treasure, where man's treasure is, you know, there your heart shall be. So it's the same thing with you. Are you doing something that when you wake up, you feel like, this is my purpose? I'm living my purpose. You don't have to wake me up in the morning. I wake up every day. I'm like, what cases do we have? Because I love what I'm doing. And therefore, it's impossible to say someone like that is incompetent.
Let's talk about salary negotiation and the context to like us to really dive into this matter. We have Black people who are excellent in what they do. You know, I've been having conversation with my colleagues, with my peers, and we'll realize that their struggle in their careers is negotiating salaries. They know that they can do well in terms of they understand what must be done, competent in their work, but now they're struggling when it comes to negotiations. Does visibility has to do how you negotiate your salary or how you are paid, and how can a competent but too agreeable person negotiate their salary? You know that I know what I can do. I know.
Yeah. So this is a very emotive subject that you're touching on now, because one, the reality is that we still live in an unequal society, and it's reflected by the kind of workplace we're in. You find that people of particular races get paid this much, and other races get paid that much. And the reason is, as Black people, and because we haven't, that's why, issues like Black consciousness as ideologies become so important, because they increase our confidence, our worth. We cannot quantify our worth in a salary because we've grown up in environments that told us we were inferior. We still think, for instance, how do you negotiate a salary when the person in front of you, you call them umlung, which is a superior term. You can even call me as a Black employer umlung, because that word for you is like this. That automatically places you here. And that relationship becomes almost a master servant. And you're going to undersell yourself because your mindset already thinks, this person, I need this person more than this person needs me. So we have to go back to the ABCs of self-worth. What am I worth? What is my experience here? Do your assignment, do your homework, find out what is the market rate for somebody like you with your experience. And then ask the person when they're telling you about salary, because employers won't tell you how much they want to pay. They'll ask you, what are your expectations? You ask them back, how do you think a person like me with these skills should be paid in your environment? How would you want to persuade me to be retained and not go elsewhere because I'm wanted, I'm met wherever I am? You see, that tells me that you're not begging for a job here. You are saying, you need to hire me. I'll tell you this, when I finished my article and I decided to become a labor lawyer, because Marikana influenced me, and I thought, no, I'm going to be a labor lawyer. I sat there in a boardroom. It was going to be really my first job after articles. I sat there and they say, why should we hire you? I looked at that lady. Her name is Lauren Spence. She's now my best friend. I looked at her and I said, no, that's the wrong question, ma'am. I know this is an interview about me. The question is, why shouldn't you hire me? Why? What is the reason? You, as I'm sitting here, tell me why you wouldn't hire someone like me. They looked and they said, whoa, you can come across as being arrogant, but there's a fine line between arrogance and confidence. You need to toe the line between what is arrogant and what is confident in order for you to get a best deal. The starting salary there was something about 6,000. I got 12,000 as my first basic. Why? Wow. Because I thought to myself, if I come in here, I told them, if I come in here, I'm not just coming in as a consultant. I'm going to really contribute to the knowledge base of this organization. And I started publishing articles. I started getting interviews from SABC. Their name were being publicized, and they threw money at that because they saw the value. So the issue of salary negotiation is value yourself, take your craft seriously, negotiate for the next job and not for the job you are interviewing for. In that way, you're going to step up the ladder very, very quickly. Yeah.
So I get that you need to be really confident of yourself and of what you can offer to the company. Now, what happens when the company does not really appreciate you? Because now I think, or rather, you spoke something, you wrote something in chapter 5. You are talking about your soft vengeance to your world.
Yes.
I want you to take us through that before I ask this question. I'd like you to take us through chapter 5, where you are talking about the soft vengeance to your would-be career assimilators. What is that all about?
So, yeah, let's start from the concept of soft vengeance. That concept comes from the Justice Albie Sachs, who was a Chief Justice, a retired Chief Justice now of Constitutional Court, a retired justice, and he's an intellectual. I have read every single book by Albie Sachs that he's ever written with one hand. So he was a member of the ANC. He was in the struggle, and a white man, Jewish man, and he was bombed somewhere in Mozambique by the apartheid government, and he lost a hand. And so he speaks about the concept of soft vengeance, how he administered vengeance to apartheid apologists when he wrote the constitution in one hand, and he penned justice and jurisprudence at the Constitutional Court. He was administering vengeance. Now, I took that. I was touched by that idea of soft vengeance in my early career, and that's what made me leave employment to start my own thing. So that was around 2015 or so. I became, when I was admitted as an attorney, I joined this particular law firm. I now had a title of being an associate. I spent about 3 months in the firm. Every month I was, finishing deals. I was by the 15th already have invoiced, met my target, getting bonuses. And then I started, because I was writing articles and journals being published. So there's SABC, a program, Rands with Sense, that came through and said, look, we want to make you a resident legal analyst for the show. And they would come and they would shoot episodes at my office. So I became something almost like a celebrity lawyer in my firm. Now, that didn't sit well with my seniors, because they felt threatened. Yeah, I am making the money. Clients are like, nobody's going to take our cases but Bongani, biggest clients. And TV is coming and making episodes and like, hey, this guy is a threat. So they come with something very frivolous. They come to me and they say, take this matter to Labor Court, make a review application. And they give me the grounds of review. Now, I'm somebody who thinks and challenges somebody, and I said, no, but I don't like the ground of review that want me to take this matter on. I've got ground number 1, 2, and 3. The guy says, no, you're being insubordinate, you are challenging me, and they say, we're going to have a hearing for you or resign. Then I resigned, but I wrote a long letter to them. And one of the letters I wrote, one of the things I said in the letter, I said, you have missed out an opportunity to groom something great, because you would have said to yourself, I was part of this man's growth. I contributed, but now you are on the wrong side of history. And I left them and I moved on with my life. Some years later, down the line, all of them one by one came back to me to apologize. And they said, look, we didn't even know what we let go. We are sorry. So the soft vengeance part is, instead of going there, feeling sorry for myself, feeling I'll never be a great lawyer, every case I took, every win, I was giving a blow to my assassins, to those that wanted to assassinate my career. Every time I donned the gown at court, I was administering a blow to say, look at me now. You wanted to make me invisible. I am visible. Every time I get published this year that I won a ivermectin case and it was all over the news, I was administering my vengeance to those that said, you are Black, you're not worthy, you can't succeed in this field, you are this and that. And I said, who am I not to succeed? Who am I not to be, not to prosper in this field? So that's the concept of self-vengeance, and that's the chapter, I feel, one of the most powerful chapters in the book, because they are very personal, and I use them as an inspiration. And I go on, Thabo, just before I let you come in, I go on even to say, still, no matter the name one makes, you become invisible because of your height. You become invisible because of the color of your skin. You become invisible because, of your age. But now, suddenly, the Bongani that was last year is not the Bongani that is here. Now, suddenly I become visible where judges start calling you by name, Mr. KaLuthuli. You feel like, okay, this person sees me, I'm here. Or a judge will say, come see me in my chambers. Well done on that ivermectin case. You saved the country. You're like, okay, now I'm visible. Now I'm here. Beyonce says, I was here. That's the assignment I have, that one day when my life is being spoken over, people may say, he was here. That's all I do. Just that I was here.
So I know that part of the things that you mentioned on your soft vengeance is how you started your own law firm. And we have Black professionals, whether it's in engineering, whether it's medicine, whether it's in accounting, wherever it could be, who are struggling probably with, who are experiencing racial inequality. How does visibility in such an environment? That's number one. And number two, when do we quit? Is starting your own, is entrepreneurship or is business always the perfect way to do your soft vengeance?
So, firstly, I didn't want to be that run-of-the-mill normal black firm. With all due respect to my colleagues, I didn't want to take on ref. My colleagues will say, "Oh, start a firm, do road accident fund claims, you'll become rich instantly," and they're right. You become rich instantly. You settle in millions. Suddenly, you are driving big cars. No, I didn't want something easy, so I started with my branding. I called myself a Pan-African law firm. I was sending a message that I'm not confined to the jurisdiction of South Africa. I'm going to Africa. I spoke it into existence, right? Yeah. So that meant now I became a boutique firm. And how I became a boutique firm, it meant that now my clients became diverse. So I don't have a practice that just black people come to me. Corporates came to me and started using me. I have clients, I do work in Tanzania, Zambia, Botswana, all around the continent, Ghana, Morocco. We've done work there because it's our mindset that said to us, we are not limited to just here. All right. So I was sending a statement to my peers. I was sending a statement to the entire profession. And then your second question, Thabo, just remind me again.
The question is how to pursue visibility in a toxic environment, and when do we call it a quit? And if we do call it, is it always the case that the soft vengeance comes through entrepreneurship or starting your own business?
Yeah, I'll be intellectually dishonest if I say the best way to administer soft vengeance is to be an entrepreneur, because not all of us are made for that. Some of us can thrive in the workplace, in a corporate environment, being subservient, moving up the ranks until you become a CEO of an organization. We can rise up the ranks. So it's not necessary that once you go to entrepreneurship, that's it, that's the solution. But primarily between you and me, the greatest emancipator economically, financially, is entrepreneurship. It's difficult to start, but to get the hang of it, it is so liberating financially. I compare myself when I was an employee waiting for the 25th. I would be broke from the 15th until the 25th. Then I'm okay the 25th. The cycle goes on again. I'm now waiting for the 25th. But now money can come in at whatever time of the month. If you are broke as an entrepreneur, you are broke. But when you hit it big, you really hit it big. But money, you don't have to wait for the 25th. So for me, going at it alone, that became my greatest vengeance. And I was able to administer the vengeance because of that. But some people don't have the kind of drive that will make you succeed and thrive as an entrepreneur. For instance, if you're an entrepreneur, no one is there to push you to say, go to work. You have to have it in you to say, I'm going to work. But if you're an employee, you know that if you don't go to work, you're going to lose that job. You're going to get a warning. So it's easy to just be despondent if you don't have it in you. But for me, I really think that you can't just suddenly change people to become entrepreneurs. We have to be intentional about it. From the curriculum at primary school level to high school, we teach entrepreneurship. We teach our new crop of Black children that you don't have to look to people to be employees. You can create your own jobs and become employers. It's a mindset. A white child wakes up, goes to school, knowing that I'm going to hire all of you because I'm going to take over my dad's business. A Black child comes and say, oh, I'm looking to work for you. These things aren't spoken for. They're not spoken about, but these are realities. But it means there's an onus on us, there's an obligation on us as enlightened Black people, people that are economically emancipated, people that want to be liberated even financially, to start creating legacies so that our children can then look at these other days and say, oh, by the way, I'm coming here from varsity. I'm taking over my dad's business as CEO. I'm going to hire you. You're going to work for me. That's the attitude.
Wow. As a former student leader, I want to ask this. I know we have one thing in common. We are both falling. We are both falling. And, and so I think you'll explain that to the viewers when you answer this. What is the role of high institutions in challenging the Eurocentric cultural benchmarks in the workplace? And how can young students, or how can students perpetuate that mission in their work environments?
Yeah, look, again, even the academy, the university, really gives us gives us a bird's eye view of the society we have, a society that has not transformed, a society that has not decolonized. I'm getting more excited now as more and more people are able to write their PhD theses in their mother tongues and they get awarded PhDs. There's a change now, towards decolonization. What is needed at university, one, in the decolonial project is not to have a university, and in Africa, we need to have an African university. This means that this is a university that reflects the societal ethos of the people it serves. You cannot wholesale Eurocentrism to here and then want us to then buy into that idea, but also transform. What does that mean? That means we need now to look at Africanization of a curriculum, not just decolonization. Decolonization without Africanization is meaningless. You got to fuse Africanization. And Africanization doesn't mean throwing in black professors here and there and saying, oh, yeah, we have now decolonized. That's transformation. Transformation doesn't mean Africanization. Africanization means fusing values, ethos grounded in social structure of African. For instance, the role of Ubuntu in a university as a value can come in to bring about Africanization. It means that now we look at African history from the Moors of Maghreb in Egypt who started a revolution in the 20th century, instead of saying, well, Enlightenment started in Europe. The moment you start from that premise, it is false. You need to tell us what the liberation and the Enlightenment in Ethiopia, and tell me of the first Black university in Carthage. Then you're talking to me, right? You need to tell me that all those guys, all those Greek philosophers that are now teaching maths, that are the founding fathers of maths, they came, they took it here in Egypt, because alchemy comes from Egypt. It's an Egyptian word. It's something that came here from Africa. Now we're talking decolonization and we're talking Africanization, looking at any subject through the eyes and the prism of Africanism and Africa. Then we know that once you speak that language, you have an African university. What will that do? That's not just theoretical. That is a mindset. That is a mindset, because decolonization is a mindset. That means now you are saying to the African child, you are at home. Right now, the African child is not at home in their own university. They feel like strangers. It's like studying in Oxford. But when I begin to hear about Khanyile from the Xhosas, how Khanyile moved and was incarcerated Robben Island, and he died trying to liberate his people crossing over Robben Island, then I began to know, okay, that's me. How Moshoeshoe really annihilated the British from Thabo, then you're talking to me. How Shaka started a revolution that even the Queen was scared of Shaka, having not even seen him, met him, then you're talking to me. We can do that discipline by discipline until the entire curriculum is friendly to the Black man. That will now come back to society, Thabo. Society now will begin to transform and decolonize, because even the workplace will be more friendly to the African person. And these are things, Thabo, as you're coming back, I'm losing you.
Yeah, I'm back.
No, you can continue.
Okay, so I want to ask this about who is responsible on the decolonial project of high. Who is responsible for the Africanization? Is it the students, or is it the student movement, or is it the government, or is it the institution itself?
So, one, let's talk government. Government will never spearhead the issue of decolonization. They will never, because they're in bed with China, you know. So that's why they will rather teach you Mandarin than teach you Kiswahili, the most widely spoken language in the continent. So government aside, you'd have to have a complete regime change if you want government to be at the forefront of this movement. Now, I don't like the concept of outsourcing responsibility. I'm a Fanonian, even though I'm center-right in my politics. Fanon said, and I quote, many times people have quoted this, but I'll quote again, every generation out of relative obscurity must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it. What is our mission? If our mission, you as a Fallist, if your mission is to decolonize, it means you take on the cause and you say, I'm not going to wait for a European professor to tell me how to go about my own struggle. For too long, the West has been telling us how we should do things. They've been telling us how we should fight for liberation. They've been telling us how we should run our democracies. No. We need to own the struggle and begin to say, we will force the change from university up to society. So universities themselves, if they are willing to decolonize, and we see pockets of this, UNISA is doing it. Some universities, I think in KZN, UKZN is also doing it. We are seeing pockets of change, but it's not enough. Students need to put in the pressure. But what I want to warn my peers, my colleagues, Thabo, is that when we talk of decolonization, we must not be caught up in symbols. We shouldn't be caught up in nuances. We should be caught up in practical steps to go about decolonization, meaning ours should not just be smearing feces on a statue of an unfortunate Boer who long died a long time ago. No, we now need to come and think and create an ideology and say, what is decolonization according to the Fallist movement? So that means now we need to fight them with the tools that they have, which is intellectualism. Let's now write. I've got a good friend of mine who led Fees Must Fall, Rose Must Fall, in Oxford University, Kwabe. I always tell him, write, because you guys are at the forefront of the intellectual move. There are those who are able to throw stones. You'll always have your Jacob Zumas who are good military, but you also need your Thabo Mbekis who will be the think tank, and your Joel Netitenzas will be the think tank. That's what's needed, Thabo. I'm hoping I'm not rubbing people the wrong way. I'm just making an example.
They will be pardoned. I want us to close with this. I know we can continue. Already we had a chit chat that took long, and I know we can even go further with this. The last question: what does it take to be the youth at the forefront of a new economy? I know it's part of the chapters that you just spoke. But right now, I want you to really give this to young people who are listening here, to young intellects, to young Black intellects who are listening. What does it take to be a youth at the forefront of a new economy in relative to the Agenda 2063, the Pan-African dream, which everyone speaks about, everyone is looking ahead and does not even believe that these old Madalas will do that happen. So how can we influence young people to be at the forefront of the new economy?
Yeah, Agenda 2063, if you read that beautiful letter by Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma to Kwame Nkrumah, where she imagines Africa in 2063, one of the most beautiful pieces of work I've read, is digital, because she discerns that the next move, well, it's not even the next move, the wave right now is digitalization. It is 4IR. You know, politicians have been paying too much lip service on 4IR, but they're not taking steps towards us achieving and being a major role player in 4IR. I make an example in my book where I argue about the position in Botswana. In Botswana, young people have access to free data. They can go on internet. It's important because then they're able to, to enter the playing field through internet. Right now, if you don't have access to internet, you don't have access to anything. That means now, as young people, we need to move into the Internet of Things. We need to move to things like Uber. How do we become stakeholders and own our own Ubers? Eventually own the market, create consortiums, So that means the whole thing about entrepreneurship needs to change. We first need to formalize the informal sector that we are largely participating in as young Black people, make it formal to create our own advantages. You look at, for instance, the issues of Stokvel, how people have now made that serious market. That means people are beginning to look at informal sector and trying to take those things of Stokvel that used to be something backward for people who just, were not clued up, making it into a market. That's what we need to be doing. It means that we need to call ourselves to say, how do I move and become a player in globalization? I can do that if I have access to the internet, which means we must fight for the data to fall. Number two, we must fight for COSAS, amongst others, must fight and will help them fight for issues of a changed curriculum that speaks of entrepreneurship, that speaks about digitalization, so that we are able to make an impact. And that's how young people can be at the forefront of the economy. We are skilled. We need to take funds like Umsobo, remove them from politics and political clutches and make them societal movement funds, where we control the access to funds and distribution of funds and fund businesses that are geared towards 4IR. It means we need to invest in IT. We need to learn IT as young people because it's a going concern, right? So that's how we move on. If we're going to think of traditional economy, if we're going to think of things that have reached their sell-by dates, we are not going to be at the forefront. I argue in my book that young people, they are important in the sense that in every epoch, they now are ready to carry the baton. We're not going to take the baton from the guerrilla warfare. We've moved from that now. We've got to take over from a more IT, Internet of Things kind of place, so that we move the country forward. I'm unhappy about, cars and car manufacturers leaving the country. That means now we are not going to manufacture things. We are going to now be people that actually import. We're going to people that are actually consumers. We need scientists here. We need a Nobel Prize winner from South Africa. It starts with intentionally identifying young people who are gifted, funding them, supporting them, giving them the wherewithal so that we move forward as a country. Everything is going digital. Even I argue in court now digitally. As a reluctant 21st practitioner, I hated doing things online, but I had to move on with things so that I'm relevant to my client.
I saw that wearing a suit without shoes because you're online.
Exactly.
Bongani, thank you so much. And if you want to know more about the conversation, I think it's important for you to get this book, The Struggle for Visibility. Help you. You'll really be inspired to really be visible in your career as a young Black person. So I don't know, if people want this book, where can they contact you? Probably someone will be listening and see how can I get this book.
Thank you. You can reach out to me. I am on Facebook, Bongani Khanyile KaLuthuli, Bongani Khanyile KaLuthuli on Facebook. I am on Instagram at Jurist Luthuli. I'm also on Twitter, jurist_Luthuli. You can contact me. My cell phone number as well, 076-100-4051, 076-100-4051. You can get hold of me. It's available on WhatsApp, and we can talk more about accessing the book. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for your presence. We appreciate it. I believe young people have received a gold of intellect today. Thank you so much. Viewers at home.
Absolute pleasure.
This is the end of the show. We are thankful and be blessed. Have a blessed weekend and go there and be visible in your workplace. Thank you. Be blessed.
Thank you.